everybody, welcome into Parent Squad. I'm Felicia Lawrence, your host, and it is that time of year, the chaos of back to school. So parents, we know that you're busy getting supplies, you're trying to get the sleep schedules back in check, but we've got one thing that you may not have thought about. A lot happened at the State House in the last session that impacts your child's education. So what do you need to know? Well, Chalkbeat's Aleks Appleton is here to break it all down. And first up is something that impacts every student. We're talking about attendance. And we know that there is a viral post going around about what this law means for how absences are counted. So let's separate some fact from fiction here. So what are some of the concerns that's on social media about this post?
There were some concerns on social media that from now on your kids' illnesses and doctor's appointments were going to be counted as unexcused absences. And that's just not true.
Okay, so if they're gonna count it differently, which you're saying is not true, what would be the difference between excused and unexcused absences?
Right.
How would they know?
Yeah, your excused absence is usually an illness, a doctor's appointment, things like that. But all of that is decided locally, and that's a really big, important point. Your unexcused absence is anything like your child overslept, missed the bus, your car had a flat tire on the way to school, or anything that you don't tell the school about. But again, all of that is decided locally by your local school district.
So it's kind of up to the discretion of local leadership,
right,
which can also get a little gray. So what did this year's attendance law do, actually?
This year's attendance law is only a reporting law. It basically just asks schools to sort those excused absences into more categories in order for the state and the Department of Education to get a better idea of why kids have been absent from school. We had a similar law last year that did make some changes in ways that would affect parents, but those primarily affected unexcused absences, and that's if your child has 5 unexcused absences in 10 weeks, your school's required to start meeting with you, start offering resources to help you get to school. But again, those are unexcused absences. We know that some schools do send letters for excused absences, but that's decided at the local level. That's not something the state is tracking or particularly concerned about.
And I know there are probably a lot of parents, they work hard, they're trying to get their kid to school and doing certainly the best that they can. Just so you know, there has been an issue with chronic absenteeism since the pandemic. And so districts have been working to kind of crack down on it and get a handle of where kids are, why they're not in school. So it is an issue, even if you don't see it an issue for you specifically. It has
Nobody likes getting the attendance letters, but if districts are worried about it, they want you to be paying attention so a parent realizes, oh wow, these absences are really stacking up.
Make sure they're not stacking up. Okay, so another big topic is bullying. That's always been a big topic, and there's actually a new law that deals with reporting. So let us talk about that, because that's always kind of been a touchy topic with schools and children.
Yeah, unfortunately we know that bullying incidents have been on the rise. Part of that is because we have more reporting requirements from 2023 to 2024, but we can see that bullying incidents were going up even before that new reporting law. So what the law does this year is that it shortens the time that a school has to report to parents that their child was involved in a bullying incident, either as a perpetrator or a victim. They need to report that to you by the end of the next day that they become aware of the incident. And they also need to report the results of the investigation that they need to do to you by the end of the next business day after the investigation.
And that's considered a state law.
That is a state law
for all districts, so that I guess the incident just doesn't carry on and on and on. So
right. The previous law was 5 days, so they've shortened that timeline.
Yeah, I can see where the issue comes into play, that bullying can be subjective.
Yes.
And especially when you have older adults who may come from the generation of toughen up, get thicker skin. But this is at least fostering a conversation between parents, students, school caretakers, teachers, people at administration at the school. So what kinds of bullying do parents need to watch out for?
Right. It's funny you say that, because it's actually physical and nonverbal bullying that is growing. The things we think of as modern day bullying, internet bullying, that actually declined a little bit, but we can see physical and verbal are going up.
And you mentioned internet bullying. I think that's also something that older generations, adults don't realize how prevalent it is and how much it really can impact a child. Because you think, oh, that's just something that somebody wrote about me online, where our children take these things very seriously.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Another hot button topic that came up in this last legislative session is sex ed. So there are some changes here with sex ed.
Sure. The two big changes. The first is that a sex ed class has to teach the importance of consent in a sexual relationship. The second is that every sex ed class now has to show a video of fetal development as part of the course.
Okay, now does this new law require that students take sex ed?
No, absolutely not. The only requirement in Indiana law is that students receive instruction on HIV and AIDS. If you're going to get a sex ed class, if your child is going to take sex ed, you're going to get this consent form. And that consent form has been part of state law for a while, basically saying, we're teaching this course, please sign for permission. Because of the new state law this year, it's also going to have information about who the teacher is. Are they male or female? Are boys and girls being taught together or separately? And it's also going to have a summary of what the students are going to learn. You can also find your school sex ed curriculum online as a result of this new law.
Okay, so it sounds like the need for consent did not change.
No.
It's just the curriculum of what is taught within sex ed is what has been manipulated.
Some new requirements, some requirements there. And again, not every school in Indiana is even going to have this. But so if your child is going to experience this, you're going to get that form first.
And do you know what age or what grade that starts off at?
Usually the earliest it would start, the absolute earliest, is 4th grade, and it's not quite sex ed. It's more body boundaries, being a good friend, eventually
some biology,
maybe a little bit of biology, a little bit of like, you know, your body's going to go through changes, kind of the things that we would remember from high school, from around then.
Yeah. Okay, and finally, DEI. We know Indiana is one of the states kind of doing away with the policies. So first, let's talk about what DEI did in schools and then what it means now that it's going away. A lot of people might have difficulty trying to frame DEI when we're talking about our children.
Sure. Yeah, this is a tricky one because what we think of as DEI meant different things to different school districts. Maybe you had a program that you put in place that had inclusive practices, or you applied for a grant that gave your teachers professional development and things like equity and diversity. So what you may notice as a parent is that a person or a program that was there last year is not there anymore. We passed a state law that basically says teachers can't be compelled to affirm certain ideas related to race, and they can't have their students compel their students to affirm those ideas either. But we also know that's not the only change. There have been federal cuts to grants that prioritize DEI. So we're going to see probably a landscape of different changes depending on what a school had to begin with.
Okay. Obviously, a lot of important topics, some of them controversial to some depending on where you sit on the issue, but certainly our job here is to give the information to help you navigate some of the changes so that you can be informed and a part of the conversation at your child's school. An engaged parent is always a good idea.
Absolutely.
Aleks Appleton, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And all of this information, of course, next week we are going to dive into the iLearn and iRead scores, and we'll tell you what those mean for your kids. So we will continue this conversation with Aleks. Thank you so much. All right, we'll be right back.